listening to SuperPower Mommas on the SuperPower Up podcast, the show that embraces the art of soulful parenting.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. You're listening to SuperPower Mommas, and I'm so excited to be with you again today. And I'm very excited about the guest that is going to be with us in a conversation. We are talking on the topic of how to develop confidence. And Bonnie Dillabough is with me. She is a writer, and I don't know how to describe it except that she wrote her first poem when she was 8 years old and read it in her church. And she's just a delightful woman who has raised 6 children of her own. She's been in the Army. She also has, and she describes her children as amazing, which is wonderful, and her wonderful husband. And she's also a grandmama of 17 grandchildren. So we are so excited to have you on the show, Bonnie, and to really talk about this topic of how to develop confidence. So welcome.
Thank you so much. And actually, don't forget the great grandson that we recently had this year. I'm so excited about that.
Yes.
But, you know, it's kind of weird because I don't think I'm really old enough to be a great grandmother, but there you go.
Oh, but that's so wonderful, right?
Yes, it's awesome. Yes.
Generations. Yeah. And I can't wait to dive into what you have to share with us, because we know that mamas are doing such a very important work in the world. Mm-hmm. Often that kind of goes to the wayside because it's kind of that natural progression of life where people have children or not, whichever. But
sure.
But it's professions are looked at as very valuable in the world, in the work that we do, and I like to highlight the idea and the understanding that mamas have such an important role in how this world develops.
I totally agree. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
I think we have a tendency, because of cultural issues and other things, to undervalue our contribution. And the fact of the matter is looking back, if you look at your own parents or lack of parents, and especially your mom or lack of mom, it is a huge factor in so many other things that you experience in your life. And, we're talking about confidence. Your confidence is so much more bolstered when you feel loved and you live in a loving and caring family, and you know that there's somebody on your side cheering for you. And I think moms as cheerleaders is talk about your superpowers. Yeah. That is so important. And even when we have to correct our kids, we need to correct them with the understanding that we don't think less of them as a person for them making mistakes or even sometimes being belligerent, but that we do expect more of them because we believe in them and what they're capable of. And I got a lot of that as a kid growing up. I was blessed in that I had a mom for a very short period in my life who very much loved me and taught me some of the things that have affected me all of my life. And she loved me enough to give me and my sister up to my grandparents because she wasn't going to be able to take care of us. And I can't even imagine how difficult that was for her because she really did love us. Mm-hmm. And then I had a grandmother who put so much time and effort into me and my sister. And I don't think that we can shortchange the people out there, the women who are mothers in absentia, who mother other people's children. Mm-hmm. So that's through adoption, yes, or as a foster mom, or as a great aunt who just really loves and cares for her nieces and nephews. Whatever that is, that effect that we're able to have as women can be so powerful in the choices that our children make and also in how they feel about themselves. Mm-hmm. And, I was very blessed in that way to have this ongoing building of myself. And, as a kid, I had the same kind of insecurities that all, especially teenage children, find themselves in. And I had a few added factors in there. But the fact of the matter is the women in my life have been some of the strongest advocates for me. Mm-hmm. And having an advocate, I think, is really, really important.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And what a beautiful story to share, because you've touched on so many backgrounds that might be listening to the show. We all come from, and generationally things have been shifting, but mm-hmm. what was true today was not true necessarily years ago.
No, it wasn't. Matter of fact, I was actually looked down upon by my peers because my parents were divorced. Mm-hmm. And that was a big deal thing. Back then, people just didn't do it. It was a scandalous thing when somebody got divorced. These days, the majority of young people live in families that are not traditional.
Right. Which brings with it a whole nother set of challenges and blessings,
And blessings. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's about time that we all owned up to the fact that there are no perfect families, there are no perfect parents, but we're all doing the best that we can.
Right.
And so I'm not going to sit here and point the finger at somebody else when I know of the my own shortcomings as a parent. And I was a stay-at-home mom in the neighborhood. Uh-huh. And I have 6 children. And when you think about 6 kids, each of them bringing a couple of other kids home because their parents weren't home, they were out working. Mm-hmm. No judgments there. That was just the way that it was.
Right.
And so I was a stay-at-home mom, and we had sometimes dozens of children in our house at any given time. My husband would come home and he'd say, okay, any of you whose name is not Dillabough, it's time for you to go home. But, and years later, I have gotten phone calls from individuals who are grown people with children of their own now, mm-hmm. Saying, I want you to know what it meant to me to know that I had a safe place that I could go after school, where there wasn't any fighting, where there was no judgments, where there were rules that we followed. And because of that, we were all so much happier. And I got the opportunity to really feel like that I could talk to you when I needed to, when things were rough. In her case, her mom died when she was early teens. Mm. And there was, of course, so many things that you go through as a result of something like that. And
absolutely.
He said, I really needed a mom right then, and you were there. So, momming is not just about bearing children, although how important is that? No species without it, right?
Right.
But that being said, we all can be nurturers of the people around us, and not necessarily only children. Mm-hmm. One of the things, right now I'm going through this really wonderful adventure this season in my life where I'm getting the opportunity to write novels, which is something I've wanted to do since high school. And I did the other things that at the time felt way more important to me. And I have no regrets for that.
Can we just hold that thought for a minute? We have to take a break.
Oh, let's take a break.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. But I wrote down, we're going to pick up right where you're leaving off. Okay. So everyone stay tuned because, and please share with us your mama superpower.
I will.
Okay. So where can people find you? And we'll take a break.
The best place to find me right now is either on Facebook, Bonnie Dillabough on Facebook.
Okay.
Or you can find me on my author page on Amazon.com. Bonnie K. T. Dillabough is my author page on Amazon.
Perfect. And that will be in the show notes, everyone. So we'll be right back. We are talking on how to develop confidence with Bonnie Dillabough. Hold on.
Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Don Rekla, Executive Director of SuperPower Experts, and we want to thank each of you for making SuperPower Up the #1 podcast network for personal development and spiritual growth. Because people like you have the courage to say that mindfulness, healthy living, disrupting reality, the pursuit of consciousness, responsible entrepreneurship, and radical parenting matter, we now amass over 1 million downloads monthly in more than 90 countries. Our numbers keep growing because there are far more people willing to live divergently than mass media wants to acknowledge. For you, the change makers, the light bearers, the way showers, we say thank you. If you're ready to take the next step in your evolution, go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower quiz. And as Neva Lee Rekla, our youngest podcaster, likes to remind us, remember, we all have superpowers and we can change the world.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to SuperPower Mommas, and I'm Laura Greco. And joining me today is Bonnie Dillabough, and we're speaking on the topic of how to build confidence. And before we left for the break, you were about to tell us a story, but before you continue that story, I would like, or at least while you're telling that story, I would love for you to tie in your mama superpowers, because that's something we like to ask all our guests on the show.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I'll start with the mama superpowers. I think that my mama superpower is just simply listening. I spent a lot of time listening to young people talk when they were deliberately talking to me, and also when I was just paying attention to the conversations around me, because I think that people need somebody to listen to them.
Yeah.
And that has stood me in good stead in everything that I have done in my life. Just listening, and not just listening with your ears, but listening with your heart.
Yes.
And so hearing the words behind the words is just very, very important, because most people, especially when they're talking about something emotional, don't have the ability to completely express how they're feeling, or are embarrassed by their feelings and don't really want to just come out and say things. So they kind of tap dance around, a little bit. But yeah, I would say that listening is probably one of my big things, something that developed over years. It wasn't something I figured out right away. I had other people, other moms in my life, in my associations at church and in my neighborhoods, who taught me how important that was. And so it's a skill that I actually worked on developing. And I think, we consciously need to, if we don't have a skill, what do we need to do to get that skill, right? So, but in my books, as I started to say, one of the things that I try to emphasize is the importance of families in many senses of that word, and the importance of reaching out in kindness to other people. And my books it's a science fiction fantasy thing, and there's some conflict that goes on and all this kind of stuff and things that get stirred up, and my characters are put in some pretty uncomfortable situations, none of which, by the way, is uncomfortable in terms of inappropriate.
Okay.
That's important to me. I wanted to be sure that I could, without any problem, have any of my grandkids read my books and not come away with anything that was unworthy of them. So, but in there, I have a very strong female main character, and actually a number of strong female characters within the book. And their challenges are very much about how do you have confidence in a situation where you're thrown into something. It's kind of like being thrown into the swimming pool, not being able to swim. And we find ourselves in those kinds of situations all the time in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is about a young woman who finds herself in exactly that kind of situation where she really feels like she's in over her head. And fortunately, there are people who, over time, reach out to her and help her to strengthen herself so that she can, in turn, then be a major strength for the cause that she finds herself signed up for, so to speak. So I really feel strongly that we have the capability to not have to stay in the place we're at. So as women, we find ourselves, okay, so we're taking care of little kids, we're taking care of little kids, we're taking care of little kids, and that's wonderful. And that's awesome, and it's what we're supposed to do. But there's also these other longings that we may have.
Yes.
Of things that we thought we wanted to do before we were having kids and taking care of kids. And especially, oh my goodness, running around after teenagers, let me tell you. I had 5 teenagers in my home at the same time, and said to myself, what was I thinking? But grandkids, that's the reward you get for not killing your teenagers. So it's all good. We made it through. But the thing is we each get to choose every morning when we get up. We can choose to have our own little pity party, and everybody does from time to time. Mea culpa, I have to say. I have my days. But we can choose that. Or we can choose to say, what can I do today to make somebody else's day better? And what's interesting about that is usually when that's your attitude, your day is better.
Yes.
It just works that way. You want to build confidence, go out and serve other people, because that's going to teach you a lot about who you are as well as what you're capable of.
Yeah, so let's tap into that little bit you just said, because I totally see what you're saying, and I so agree that this is the case. We also know that there's a lot of talk, and I've spoken it too, where taking care of yourself creates more presence with you and your children and so forth in your life, right? So how would you describe the value of that and still in keeping with a mom taking care of herself?
Well, the fact of the matter is yes. It's really interesting. People talk about love your neighbor as yourself. It's interesting because I always thought that was 2 separate commandments. Okay. But the one that comes first is you have to love yourself before you can love your neighbor as yourself. Because if you're treating your neighbor the way you treat yourself and you don't like yourself very much, you're probably not being very nice to other people.
And not even realizing it.
Not even realizing it. So how do you take care of yourself? Well, one of the things is maybe you get up a little earlier in the morning and you take time to put good thoughts into your heart. Now, there are a lot of different beliefs out there, and I am not going to try and tell anybody how to believe about anything. Right. For me, it's about prayer, or some people will call it meditation, and reading my scriptures. That's what I do to bring that feeling into myself, to prepare myself for a day of dealing with the craziness. Because let's face it, it's there.
Yes.
And you will cope with it, and you will cope with it well, or you'll cope with it badly. And any given day, it's who knows what it's going to be. Because let's face it, there are all kinds of factors that lead into this. Oftentimes it's because we're in physical pain or mental pain. And there's no judgment on either one of those things. If you're hurting, you're hurting. However, that being said, we have to choose how we're going to cope.
Yes.
And so sometimes it's having a really close friend that you can reach out to. I remember doing my housework back in the day before cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
I had a 25-foot cord on my phone. And I would tuck that phone into my shoulder, and me and my friend Nancy, or me and my friend Edivia, would sit there and not sit there. We would be talking on our phones, and we'd be doing dishes and chopping vegetables and straightening and folding clothes and whatever else we needed to do, because we didn't have to do it by ourselves. We got it done.
Right.
So having a good friend. And how do you have a good friend? You have a good friend by first being a good friend. And so sometimes that means you have to reach out to somebody, get to know your neighbors, be a part of something. It's not easy when you've got kids to also do something for yourself. But I know for a while for me, when I had teenagers and they were able to handle themselves for a little while in the evenings, I would go sing with the Sweet Adelines.
Very nice.
And that did it for me. And that made it a lot easier for me to deal with.
Right.
So,
right. And I love that you brought out that, that parallel that, in order to be a great friend and to love others, we need to be able to love ourselves, because how we love ourselves is how we love others. And I would like to add to that includes how we talk about ourselves to ourselves. Because if we're talking about ourselves in certain ways, we can be sure that those same kind of attitudes will leak out from time to time onto others.
Well, and in case of our children,
absolutely,
especially if we're fussing ourselves out loud.
Yes.
Oh man, what an idiot I am.
Yes.
You say something like that.
Yes.
Later on, you will hear that repeated by your children.
Yeah, about themselves.
And it just kills. It just hurts your heart to hear them talk about themselves that way. And yet you taught them that. Right. And not intentionally.
No.
So
but to live in choice is so valid. And I think that you and I bringing this out is certainly, absolutely not in any way meant to be judgmental, but to create awareness.
No. It's about teaching people that they can choose. A lot of times we feel trapped. We don't realize that we can make a choice.
Exactly.
And so, but that takes effort. It doesn't just happen. And I have to say, it's like anything else that's worth having. It's worth taking some time and, there are some great books out there about how to talk to yourself. There are great podcasts like this one that's kind of daily food for you, that you can listen to that and say, okay, I can do this now. There are so many great resources out there. There are support groups out there. If you're struggling with something, there are support groups out there that are wonderful, that can help you. And then, of course, if you're involved in your church and your community, there are people that you can reach out to who would be more than happy to reach back and to have someone they can have. It's really nice when your friend and you have alternate valleys.
I remember the first time I actually, because I come from a very challenged background as a child, and the first time as an adult, I realized I had choice. Like I sort of was always looking to live in choice, but not recognizing it as a powerful tool. And that is a powerful tool because it takes away the victim mentality and creates an opportunity of possibility. And I just,
totally. You want to be confident, you need to put some time into yourself. You need to recognize that you are a person of worth, that maybe you haven't reached your potential yet, but you can. And just don't give up on yourself.
Oh, it's in there. I believe it's in every single individual.
It is. It's there.
It's a matter of letting that be revealed. And that's all about, people say about finding themselves. It's more like remembering who we are.
I totally agree. And then being willing to put the same kind of effort into yourself as you put into your children.
Exactly. Because we are also that child.
We are. And your children will be better and happier for it.
Yes, absolutely. And remembering to play and to enjoy the day. And my mom used to say to me, "Oh, you got 15 minutes to be, in your self-pity party, and then that's it."
Right. Yeah. I have a friend who used to put a timer on herself. That's funny. Yeah. So it's like, okay, your 15 minutes is up now. What are you going to do about this?
Yeah.
Right?
Because that's really where the relief and the joy comes.
And the empowerment.
Exactly.
You talk about your superpowers. The old Chinese saying, fall down 7 times and get up 8.
Yes.
Well, with her mom, it's a lot more falling down and a lot less getting back up that has to happen on a daily basis. But it's doable if you remember that you are amazing.
Yeah, you are.
I mean, the fact that you're even on the planet automatically qualifies you for that word.
Exactly. And we were speaking in the beginning of our show about the huge impact that women and moms, whatever form a mom takes, but that nurturing mother, that energy of feminine has such an impact on the children that are in their sphere.
Yes.
And ultimately, we're all connected. So what one is thinking actually becomes affecting, becomes an effect to others in the sphere, and we're all connected all over the earth. So
we totally are. Brothers and sisters, everyone.
Exactly. And our little boys, they also need our, the mamas to be that for them as well, so that they can go out and be empowering in the world and
absolutely
do their work as well. So
I had 3 of each, and they're all just awesome. And my oldest son, he FaceTimes me pretty much every day. He's 46 and he still calls his mom, and we've just, that's the other cool thing, is you get to a point in your life where you're not just mom, you can be friends with your kids, because you don't have to correct them anymore,
Right.
And so you can just hang out and enjoy them, and it's amazing.
Yes, it is. So I would like to circle around, because you wrote this beautiful science fiction movie, but it really,
movie.
book.
Oh, I hope it's a movie someday.
Yeah, right.
It's a book right now.
It's a book.
A series, actually.
Yeah. So what a great way so what age group would you say?
We've recently reclassified it as what we would call young adult, although I have 11-year-olds and 9-year-olds that are reading it and enjoying it. We're calling it young adult fiction, mainly because there are no little sand traps in them of inappropriate things in the books, but any age can enjoy them. It's about a young woman in her 20s, but there's just, I think, something for everyone in it. But yes, we have classified it as young adult science fiction fantasy. And I say science fiction fantasy because it's science fiction that reads like a fantasy. So it has that same feeling of questing that you see in fantasy books, but it's based on science. There's no wand waving in it. I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, but this is not that book. And but it's about meeting challenges and how when people join together, they can do amazing things.
So this sounds like a great book for moms too.
I think so. I have a homeschooling mom who has read it with her kids, and now I'm going to go get to visit a homeschooling association and talk to them about writing, which is really exciting. But so my tagline is this: a young woman inherits a house, a cat, and a key, and none of them are what they seem to be. And the name of the series is The Dimensional Alliance. The first book in the series is The House on Infinity Loop.
Cool. That's so neat.
I'm having so much fun with it. It's just a blast.
You know, our time flew right by.
It did. It did. But you and I could talk for hours.
We've already done that, I think.
Yes.
But I would like to ask you, is there something that we maybe didn't mention, or something, a message you would like moms to recall to themselves? One thing that we may not have covered, or that we covered and you want to emphasize before we go?
Yeah. Don't expect yourself to be perfect. However, don't shortchange yourself by accepting limitations that you actually have some power over. You have the ability to do amazing things. And when I say amazing, I'm not talking about Pulitzer Prize, walking the red carpet. I'm talking about touching the lives of others in a positive way that makes a difference. Because if every human being on the planet today decided for even 1 month to do one nice thing for something every single day, and that's all you moms out there, what would change in this world?
Right? You just reminded me of Holland's Opus. Because that man wanted to be, right, a professional, and he became a teacher. And yet the lives that he touched over the years.
Absolutely.
And that's what matters. Yeah. And
that was a great movie.
Yeah. But it's a reminder. And when you said that, I thought of that, because that is so true. Our red carpet sometimes is the carpet we walk to our children or to our community, or that's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that.
I have had so much fun talking to you today, and thank you to all your listeners for taking the time to be here, because I think, having listened to some of your podcasts, I think that they're in a good place and they need to continue. By the way, I have a podcast too. Did you know that?
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's brand new. It's called The Other Side of the Door, and it's available on Spotify and other areas and whatnot. And they can go to the Dimensional Alliance fan gate on Facebook and get links to that.
Okay, so what is that again?
The Dimensional Alliance fan gate. It's my fan page on Facebook. Okay, that's great. Okay. So thank you so much for joining us and really helping us to pour through the topic of how to develop confidence, because that's so important. And I want to thank you very much for being here. And I also want to thank all you mamas here who have been listening. And I just admonish you to love yourselves for the treasures that you are. You already have what it takes. Breathe into your own hearts and know that no matter what, things are going to work out just fine. Yep, I agree.
We love you, and your children love you. So go out, do good, love, and I can't wait to see you next time. Thank you so much.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower Quiz today.